My name is Megan Anderson. I got married right after graduating from college and had a child 3 years later. But we divorced soon after. 3 years have passed since then. And now I work at a real estate agency. My ex-husband, Billy, showed up and scoffed at me. "What, you work at a place like this?" "Ah, welcome. Idiot, you think I'd rent a cheap room like this?" I've remarried, and now I'm the son-in-law at a hotel. I'm set for life. I don't deal with poverty. If you're not here to rent, why did you come? I was just passing by. Then I saw your poor-looking face working here. So I thought I'd show off how rich I've become. Billy laughed, thinking he had become wealthy, and acted arrogantly. I can't believe this man was once my husband. It was a youthful mistake. Why did I marry him? It all started when we dated in college. We started dating as soon as we entered college, and he proposed just before graduation. When I told my parents I wanted to marry, they said it was too soon. Billy's parents thought the sooner, the better. They also said we should have children right away. Eventually, under pressure from Billy's parents, the marriage was arranged. And we had a family meeting. Billy's parents were adamant that we should have children immediately and that they had to be boys. Hearing this, my parents did not approve of the marriage. However, I loved Billy and decided to go ahead with the marriage against my parents' wishes. It was right after we registered our marriage. "Let's live at my parents' house." Billy suddenly suggested this. I wanted to live alone with him for a while. But he convinced me we should start saving immediately because children are expensive. Although I was anxious about living with his parents, I convinced myself it would work out and agreed. However, even after a year, I did not get pregnant. And both my in-laws and my husband started to berate me. A year has passed, and no child? You're such a failure as a wife. If you can't have children, you're just a maid. Don't embarrass me. I was attacked every day. Moreover, by that time, he started bad-mouthing my parents as well. "Your parents are really poor, huh?" "What do you mean?" "It was at the family meeting." "What about your mother's clothes? How can she wear such outdated clothes? And her bag and shoes are antiques. Your father's suit is old-fashioned too. Being okay with wearing that is like hanging up a sign saying you're poor. At least if it were a manager's level, it'd be okay. But that's like a regular employee, isn't it? Such things. You're a child, so you wouldn't understand the truth, huh?" It's pathetic. I don't want to associate with such poor people. So I won't have any family relations with your parents. Not only my husband, but also my in-laws said the same. And I could no longer visit or contact my own family. However, when I checked how much my husband was earning, I found that while my father-in-law was a civil servant, my husband was just a factory worker at a small, unknown company. It wasn't a family that could talk big about others. Yet, he was adamant about not dealing with poor people, which made no sense. As a year passed and the second year was about to end, I realized I hadn't gotten my period. With a little hope, I visited the gynecologist and heard the doctor say, "Congratulations, you're pregnant." Overjoyed, I returned to my parents' house and informed my in-laws and husband, who were all delighted. This made me feel recognized as a wife. I thought this child would bring happiness like an angel. After that, they started treating me as a valued wife. When it was time to confirm the baby's gender, my in-laws said, "She's showing, so it must be a boy." She has a strong face, so it's definitely a boy. They didn't ask for a sex confirmation. Then, I gave birth amidst severe pain. However, it's a girl. That was the first thing my mother-in-law said. Once she knew it was a girl, she wouldn't even hold the baby, saying that having such a child disqualified me as a wife. Moreover, she said, this child should be given up for adoption somewhere. I desperately protected my child and begged them to spare us. I was okay with being a maid, but I wanted them to save my child. Then my father-in-law said there was no need for a maid to stay hospitalized forever. He tried to discharge me. Fortunately, the hospital did not allow it. Somehow, I managed to rest for 5 days. But once discharged, the treatment I received was even harsher than before. A maid doesn't need a room. They threw all my belongings into the yard. When I tried to pick them up and bring them inside, they yelled at me to throw them away. Reluctantly, they allowed me to keep a few personal belongings. But I was confined to a small space in the hallway. There was no heating, only a blanket. I folded it many times over, desperately trying to keep my child warm. Then, one day, I noticed my child had a fever. In the falling snow, I ran to the hospital, where she was diagnosed with pneumonia. I was told to hospitalize her immediately, and I stayed as an attendant. Even so, no one came to visit. My little daughter lay in the warm hospital room, breathing painfully. I wanted to let her sleep in a warm room with a soft blanket every day. That was all taken away just because she was a girl. Why can't it be a girl? Why does being a girl have to be so painful? No matter how much I think about it, I cannot understand. According to my in-laws, girls are useless because they marry off and are of no help. Just for that reason, is it right to deny being born a girl? It's wrong. This shouldn't be allowed. As I stroked my daughter's head, I kept apologizing to her, unable to make her happy. As her fever subsided and the day of our discharge approached, I felt fearful of returning to my in-laws' house. I thought, if we go back, she'll suffer the same way again. I don't want her to go through that. As I thought this, my husband surprisingly came. Hey, you're getting discharged soon, huh? Did you come to pick me up? Given everything that had happened, it was absolutely impossible. But maybe there was a faint hope inside me. Maybe he realized how lonely it was without the child while she was hospitalized. That's what I thought, or wanted to think. But my husband shattered that hope. Idiot, why would I come to pick you up? There's no way that would happen. Then. We're getting a divorce. I don't need a troublesome kid like that. This is the end for you and me. No way. You pay the hospital bills. I said from the beginning to give that kid up for adoption. Yet, you said no. So, there's no need for me to pay. Saying that, he threw the divorce papers and a pen onto the bed. Hurry up and sign it. I can't acknowledge someone who can only give birth to girls as my wife. Truly, marrying you was a mistake. I felt like everything I had endured was collapsing all at once. Thinking that I had made my child suffer for such a person, I felt like such a foolish mother. Then, without hesitation, I signed the divorce papers and handed them to Billy. Good, now you and I are strangers. I threw away all your belongings. Don't come back. What about my child's clothes? I threw those out too. I don't need stuff from such a kid. With that, Billy left the hospital room. The other mothers in the room had heard our conversation and looked at me with pity. What should I do? I'm being discharged today. I have no money, what should I do? While I was in despair, looking at my daughter, I felt a surge to rely on my parents. I hadn't contacted them in so long, and they had opposed the marriage that I had insisted on. They might not forgive me, but still, I wanted to save at least my child. With that thought, I put my daughter to bed and went to make a phone call. I called my father, apologized tearfully, and repeatedly asked for help. Without getting angry, he asked where I was. When I told him I was at the hospital, he came to pick me up right away and even paid the hospital bills. In the car on the way home, I told my parents everything and said, "I'm sorry, really sorry. Please, just save this child," and repeated it again. Then my mother said, "You've done well. Welcome back." My father assured me, "Don't worry. You are my daughter." When I returned to my family home, my room was as it had been before. The blanket seemed freshly aired out and fluffy, and I was grateful that I could lay my daughter on such a blanket. Once back home, I started working right away. Although my parents said I should take it easy for a while, I couldn't just rely on them. I was desperate to at least earn enough for my daughters and my own food. And now, 3 years later, this is how I re-encountered Billy. Working while taking care of a child, huh? You hate being poor, don't you? You went back to your parents' house, right? Yes, that's right. Going back to a poor family, just huddling together with other poor people. What a pity. As for me, my wife is the owner of a hotel. Seriously, I'm living the easy life. Billy was bragging about how rich he had become. I even have a son now, he's 2 years old. I couldn't have a son with you. But now I'm really set for life. As long as the kid grows up well, my old age is secure. Which hotel is it? You interested? I'll tell you, but you might feel even more pathetic. Billy said the name of the hotel. I thought for a moment and then responded, "Ah, that place. You know it?" "Yes, I know it. It's a famous place, a historic hotel. You'd be strange not to know it." You managed to remarry into such a hotel? I registered the marriage the day after we split. What? How could you? Were you dating that mistress while you were still married to me? Well, yeah. Since you couldn't have a child even after a year, my mother prepared the next partner for me. When I was introduced, she was just my type, so we started dating right away. She knew you were married, right? Why would I say that? It'd be a waste if she ran away because of that. So, you were trying to drive me out? Yeah, that's right. I thought it was hopeless since you couldn't have a child in a year. I was working on driving you out, but at the end of the second year, we found out you were pregnant. I was worried about what to do with the owner of the hotel if it was a boy. But it was lucky for me that it was a girl. So, you treated my daughter horribly because you were cheating? Can't help it. Even my mother said we didn't need a girl. What kind of people are you? Well, from my point of view, maybe you were the one cheating. What do you mean? The current wife was the real relationship. But seriously, I was freaking out about how to drive you out because you wouldn't leave. Then, when that kid got pneumonia, again, I was lucky. I really am lucky, huh? Yes. I'm lucky too. Lucky to have divorced a man like you. If we had continued as a couple, my daughter would have only been unhappy. Well, say whatever you want. My mom was encouraging it. There were no problems. Plus, she's an owner at a historic hotel. Such a good connection isn't something you just stumble upon. Compared to that, you're pitiful. A single mother in poverty. No one would remarry you, right? Looks like you're stuck in poverty for life. I don't plan to remarry, so I don't care about that. Sure. No need to pretend. No one would bother with you anyway. I really think about it sometimes. Now I'm among the rich. I've quit my job, you know. I'm the hotel owner's husband. I can live just by playing around. So, divorcing you was definitely the right move. Huh? You quit your job? Yeah, I quit. Working hard is for the poor. Is that okay? Of course, it's okay. I have nothing to worry about. Is there nothing to worry about? What do you mean by that? Doesn't that hotel have a huge debt? Huh? No way. What, are you saying stupid things because I've become rich? Jealous, huh? How pathetic. If you want, I can even treat you to some fun since you don't have money. I'll pay for it. Can't even take your kids to an amusement park or zoo, right? Though I find kids boring anyway. We were a couple once. If it's about adult fun, I'll cover it. You're really stupid, you know? The debt of that hotel is well known in the real estate industry. Don't lie. You're just trying to make me anxious. Hopeless, really. I handed him my business card. If you ever have trouble, feel free to contact me. Whether I'll help you or not, I'll think about it then. Who do you think you are? Some real estate agent's clerk can't help. He stopped mid-sentence because the business card read CEO. Huh, what does this mean? The parents you called poor own buildings everywhere. They're real estate tycoons, not just buildings but also large leisure facilities. No way. They dressed like that, how could they be so rich? My parents buy quality and use it for a long time. The outfit my mother wore then cost over $10,000, and her bag is worth at least $30,000. They repair things instead of throwing them away. They're not poor. They just understand the value of things. My father's suit then, you couldn't afford it in a lifetime. How can that be? Then why are you working here? If you're really the CEO, you wouldn't be working as a clerk. I'm not a clerk. I just happened to stop by today. But that suit, it's like what a clerk would wear. Yes, I choose such designs on purpose. There's no point in flaunting luxury to customers, right? No, that's weird. If you're a tycoon's daughter, you don't need to work. People feel alive by working. If you just play, you'll decay. That can't be right. Billy seemed taken aback but quickly recovered, trying to maintain his bravado. No. You're just a fool who can't do anything but work because you're poor at heart. It's definitely more fun to play. That's your way of life, I won't deny it, but your wife must be having a hard time. She's dealing with a huge debt, and her husband is such a mess. It's like you're living in a fantasy. I really did the right thing by divorcing you. Shut up. You couldn't even have a son, you're useless. Even if it were a boy, someone like you wouldn't make a difference. Besides, it takes two to make a child. Sure, your current wife had a boy first. But wouldn't a hotel value a girl more? What? Billy's face darkened, but he quickly returned to normal. Maybe divorcing you was a mistake. Why? If you're really a real estate tycoon's daughter, you must have more money than a hotel keeper. Yes. But I can do what I love thanks to my current wife. So, I don't think it was a mistake. And I had a son. Hope it doesn't go bankrupt. Billy left after that, but half a year later, in a panic, he contacted me saying, "I need to see you." There was no need to see him since we were divorced. But it seemed like that time had come, and I felt like seeing his pitiful face. When I arrived at the agreed place, he looked drastically different from half a year ago. With messy hair and a worn-out t-shirt. Utterly poor-looking despite previously hating such a look. It was clear the hotel was in serious trouble. "Shall we have coffee at a cafe?" Billy never drank vending machine beverages, so I asked, but he shook his head. "No, I don't have money." "Let's sit on a park bench." What a change. "I'll treat you, if your pride allows it." I don't have pride anymore. Billy laughed self-deprecatingly. "So, what did you want to talk about?" "I need help." "What happened?" "Actually, without my knowledge, my wife incurred a debt of $4 million. $4 million, that's huge." "Yeah, it's too much, I don't know what to do." "You mentioned the hotel had debts, was it about these $4 million? "I didn't know it was $4 million, but I heard it was a substantial amount." "How am I supposed to repay $4 million? "Well, why did she borrow so much?" She thought if we renovated the hotel, more customers would come. So, she borrowed to fund the renovation. $4 million for renovations? I don't think so. That seems excessive. There were also operational funds for the hotel. Apparently, she did a lot of things. I see, that's tough. Too tough. So, I need the money to pay it back. I want you to lend me some. If you borrow to pay it back, how will you repay me? That seems impossible. I'll make sure more customers come. Even though you hate working? I can't say that now. Lacks credibility, doesn't it? I can't imagine you working, and even if you did, I can't see someone with no experience like you managing it. I have no choice but to try. Just having motivation isn't enough to run a business. I know that. But I still have to do it. Sounds like a philosophy of grit. But that alone won't solve anything. You know that, especially since you lack grit. I'm sure I can manage if I get motivated. What if you're motivated and it still doesn't work? I said I'll manage it. You're being persistent. Of course, I am. You're talking about borrowing $4 million. How can I not be persistent? Besides, I can't lend money without collateral. I am the collateral. You say that with so much confidence, but you're literally worthless. Fine. I'll put up the hotel as collateral. I think the hotel is already collateral for the existing loans. Oh, right. Who's the guarantor for these $4 million? Huh? Guarantor? There must be one for such a large loan. It's my wife. How can the borrower be her own guarantor? You should really check into it. Why? There's no need to check. I give up. You really have no sense of crisis. I contacted my team to check on the guarantor for the $4 million, and as expected, it was Billy. That's ridiculous. I thought so. But I didn't know. Didn't you sign something? Billy thought for a moment, then realized. Ah. When I was drunk, she had me sign some papers. And you signed them without checking? Yeah, I was drunk and it was so troublesome. I was very sleepy. That must have been the guarantor document. That, she tricked me into being the guarantor? Well, you are a couple. It's more about your lack of awareness than being tricked. What should I do now? Being a guarantor means I'm responsible, right? Yes, now it's not just someone else's problem anymore. If your wife can't pay, the debt comes to you. How did it come to this? I can't just hang around anymore. That's where you're wrong? You shouldn't be just hanging around at this stage anyway. Maybe she took the $4 million loan because you were just fooling around. What do you mean? If you had been supportive as a husband, this might not have happened. Seriously. Billy was scratching his head, overwhelmed by the situation. But it was his fault for neglecting his responsibilities while playing around. That hotel. It's been a while since the loan. But the number of customers hasn't increased, right? Is that so? Your wife might disappear soon. Huh, why? There's $4 million in debt? That's why. She's probably at her limit. If she disappears, the $4 million debt falls to you, the guarantor, and she and the child can be free. If it's to protect her child, she might do just that. I'm going home. Take care. Billy hurried back to the hotel, but when he returned, his wife and child were gone. Only a note was left, which read, "Please take care of the $4 million. After seeing the note, Billy immediately contacted me. Megan, what should I do? What do I do now? Oh, what happened? Just like you said, she's gone with the child. I see. What should I do now? Looks like you'll have to pay. That's impossible, you know it. Come on, help me out. You can handle $4 million easily, right? Yes, I can manage that amount. I knew it. Please, help me out. I'm not going to help you. I don't even want to. Why not? Think about it. What did you say when I didn't get pregnant? You blamed everything on me. And what about when our daughter was born? Remember, you said a girl was unnecessary even though you were her father. To top it off, during a cold winter, you forced us into a corner of the hallway with only one blanket. Even thinking about it now makes me furious. For your family, our daughter got pneumonia. On the day of her discharge, you, without any money, thrust divorce papers at me and demanded I pay the hospital bills. You were worse than a demon. That's irrelevant now. Irrelevant? Do you think so? Do you know how delighted I am to see you drowning in debt? Seeing you suffer and panic gives me such pleasure. Huh, but you were worried about me, researching and… That wasn't for you. It was for me. It's more interesting if you are the guarantor, so I checked. I never intended to help you. After being ridiculed and our child suffering because of you, I won't feel relieved until I see your family fall into hell. Don't say that. That $4 million, there's no way you can handle it alone, right? Of course not. Why don't you ask your parents? Or maybe take out life insurance? There are ways. You're still on my side, right? You're suggesting these solutions. No. I'm merely guiding you to hell, along with your parents. And I've decided to sue for compensation. Plus, child support. $500 a month until she graduates from university. pay it all at once. That's impossible. Oh, come on, what's $200,000 more on top of $4 million? Why now? You can claim compensation for 3 years after discovering infidelity. If you hadn't blabbed about it, I wouldn't have known. Silly man. Please talk to a lawyer. It's impossible. This is absolutely impossible. Not my problem. It's your fault for underestimating women. Compensation was paid in full, but of course, paying the child support all at once was impossible. He promised to pay monthly once he started working, so for now, I agreed to wait. However, if he fails to pay, I will have his wages garnished. Despite having more than enough money, I can't forget the suffering my daughter endured until I see Billy fall into hell. Billy, who hates working, is now back at the factory, working day and night shifts. While he does transfer $500 monthly, it seems difficult to repay $4 million with just his factory salary. Upon investigation, he has been participating in pharmaceutical trials and risky jobs. No matter how hard he tries, it's impossible to pay it off. And he should just declare bankruptcy, but his misplaced pride won't allow it. His parents, once proud of their heir, Billy, have cut ties with him, likely to avoid the hell of debt descending upon themselves. As for me, I continue to thrive as a real estate company president. I never thought I'd become a real estate president, but I enjoy my job. I still live with my parents, and my daughter seems very happy to be with her grandparents. Every day, seeing my daughter's smile, I know divorcing was the right decision.